Marketing has a long history of believing that if you throw enough glitter, celebrities, and spectacle at people, they'll buy. But what if all the flash actually hides the thing that really drives long term sales? What if the soul of a brand matters more than the shine? Today's guest has spent decades studying that exact question. Welcome back to Is Anything Real, the show where we separate the signal from the circus and talk frankly about what still works in marketing and what belongs in the museum. I'm Adam W. Barney, founder of Scale Smarter, author of Make Your Own Glass Half Full, and longtime believer that clarity beats complexity every single time. Today we're going deep: purpose, psychology, tribe building, the soul of a brand, with someone who's lived and shaped multiple eras of advertising. Steve Biegel, founder of the Dreamboat Group, he has a long and distinguished career that covers places like Ogilvy. He's award winning and he's actually writing a book right now on purpose driven marketing and branding. Get ready for a masterclass in long term brand thinking. Steve, welcome.
Thank you so much. How are you?
Great.
Good.
Uh, Glad to have you here. Steve, you once said the soul of a brand is its reason for being. How does that idea fit into a marketing world obsessed with flash and short term performance metrics?
Well, yeah, I mean, Flash and it's all about short-term metrics right now in the industry, basically. And brands need to understand that it's like dating. Would you rather have a long-lasting relationship with a consumer, or would you rather be on Tinder and have a one-night stand? I mean, that's to put it mildly. That's really what it is. And I think brands need to foment long-term relationships based on transparency, trust, and value. There needs to be mutual value for both the brand and the consumer. And when that happens, you have a great relationship that could, inevitably be very profitable for your brand.
Mhm. Now, I know, Steve, you've also lived through traditional advertising, digital, and now this wild social era that we're in right now. How, from your perspective, has the word purpose changed or has it stayed the same?
Purpose has changed slightly, but there's wasn't any depth to it back then. Now there's a
Mhm.
little bit more depth to it, and that's what I talk about in the book that I'm writing right now. A lot of companies, unfortunately, still just slap on a purpose label and they say something really shallow like helping the world become a better place or something just that doesn't have any teeth or any meaning to it.
Mhm.
But the brands that really get it embrace purpose and actually live it, and not just slap it on a label and just say we're a purpose driven brand. And there are
Mm.
differences.
And then I guess on the flip side of it, Steve, I'd be curious to understand, what's the biggest misunderstanding that maybe consumers have about purpose-driven brands today? Do they, believe it's all fluff? Do they think
Yeah.
it's not real? Does it actually convert?
Well, here's the deal. Consumers today, with the technology that we now have at our hands 24/7, can find out if a brand is fluffing it. They can certainly tell, if a brand isn't living by what it says. And if a brand claims to be a purpose-driven brand, for instance, and claims
Mhm.
to do wonderful things for the environment, and the CEO of that brand takes his private jet to play a round of golf on a Sunday afternoon, and then comes back, they'll find out online. They'll find out, and when they do, they'll drag the company and the brand and the CEO on social media, and they won't have any of that. So consumers still are very leery of brand speak and brand promises, but when they start seeing the brand actually living what they preach, they let their guard down and they want to embrace the brand and live their identity with the brand, and it becomes a real simpatico relationship.
Right, right, right. And I mean, I think, both of us, Steve, probably love a nice fluffed up pillow when we lay down in bed at night, but purpose isn't just a tagline. It's actually a compass for consumers, I would say.
It is a compass. It is a compass, and a compass is really based on, action, not just words. Words are important, but they're meaningless unless action backs them up.
Right.
And that's what consumers really look for. And with the technology, like I said, brands can be found out. It used to be where brands could say whatever they want, and a consumer would have no recourse to challenge their statements because it
Right.
was a one-way communication. It was brands speaking to consumer. The consumer had no way to talk back to the brand or challenge the brand. But now with technology, the conversation takes place. It's very open, and brands have to understand that and embrace that they
Yeah.
will be challenged. Yet so many of them make mistakes.
Right. Right. And I'd love then to sort of jump into today's big topic, which I look at that as flashy campaigns, celebrity endorsements, and the glitter playbook. Do you think those tactics actually move long-term sales, or are they just short-term attention grabbers?
A lot of that takes place on the Super Bowl, for instance, right? Everybody wants to have their
Right.
celebrity. And there is a place for it if that celebrity works with the concept, with the idea.
Mm.
But when there are celebrities just tacked on at the end without an idea, those don't really work. They gain attention. They'll get some quick attention, but they will not have value down the road. However, the brands that use a celebrity in a conceptual way for their brand, where it fits into the storyline, fits into the ethos of the company, that can have value. And we see brands who do it really well, and we see many more who don't.
Mm.
Um, so I hate to give an answer like this, but it's the truth. It depends. it depends on
Yeah.
how you use that flash and that celebrity.
Right. And that's the difference between building an attention spike and actual true deep brand building.
That's right.
Maybe dig a little deep in here. You've got decades of case studies, I imagine you can rely upon here. But what's one example where the flash actually worked, maybe even unexpectedly, and one where it completely backfired?
Sure. So one just off the top of my head that worked was American Express with Jerry Seinfeld.
Hmm.
Um, and what was cool about that, and I was working at Ogilvy at that time when that campaign was created and produced, um, is that it they wrote the spots together, meaning Jerry sat with the creatives and actually wrote the spots together.
Right.
And so the ideas were perfectly, congruent to what Jerry was all about and the personality that he wanted to portray. And they worked really, really well. They won a lot of awards. They helped the brand lift for American Express considerably. I could tell you one which backfired completely, which wasn't too long ago, but I think it was Pepsi who used one of the Kardashians right after that issue with the gentleman who was, I think he was actually killed by the police, and there was a protest, and they used a Kardashian with a can of Pepsi to sort of help the protesters calm down. And
Right.
so it was totally fake. It was totally a farce,
Mm.
and people see right through that. And that was a huge fail for Pepsi.
Right.
So it can work with a celebrity if you use it in the right way, and it can absolutely lead to total online dragging if you fail.
Right.
And that Kardashian moment for Pepsi will go down in history as one of the biggest celeb endorsement failures of all time, no
And
doubt.
I have to even wonder, Steve, is that one of those examples where they were just simply trying to steal attention?
Yeah,
That pays off on this idea: the faster you try to steal attention, or the more you try to steal attention, rather, the faster that it slips through your fingers, it disappears, or it even hurts.
yeah. It's hurt. I believe it's hurtful. I mean, they tried to attach themselves to this unique moment in culture, and by embracing the wrong storyline and the wrong celebrity, they ended up really getting hammered.
Yeah.
And they quickly said we have to attach ourselves to this moment, and I don't think that they really thought it through. And that's what hurt them. If they
Right.
would have taken the time, like in the other case that I gave you, where Ogilvy and Jerry Seinfeld sort of teamed up and took the time to figure out the messaging and the scenes and every nuance of the campaign, uh, it wouldn't have happened like that. But
Mhm.
a lot of brands right now are just about doing something quickly in the moment just to get noticed.
Right. Right. That ties, I think, really deeply into your think, say, do framework, right? That works in that realm of behavioral economics, cultural insight. How do you envision brands should use this today, especially in such a noisy ad and just general world that we live in?
Well, I think brands have a tremendous opportunity these days. Brands have an opportunity to add meaning to themselves and to the world, meaning they can elevate the world by, taking part in positive causes. And this world needs a lot of repair. You know what I'm saying, Adam? And the government's not going to do it. So
Right.
we should stop depending on the government to find real solutions, right?
Mm,
Brands have a unique opportunity because they have the money behind them, they can get the people behind them, and they can help create an atmosphere where consumers and brands merge together and help causes. um,
mhm,
so when I talk about think say do, it's first a brand needs to like think, what can I do to help the world?
mhm,
And they have to put some thought into it, and it has to be sound reasoning based on what their products are, what their services are. It needs to really be on point. Then they have to say what they're doing, meaning they put a stake in the ground and they say, we're not
right,
going to stand for this anymore. We have to act differently and do differently. And that's how they rally their consumers, which turn into tribes if they really believe what the brand is saying, and
mm,
they advocate for this new cause. So it's think, say, and then lastly, a brand needs to do the things that they say. So
yep,
they need to create the product that will bring about some of that positive change. They need to live within their um, corporate rules, or like the example I mentioned to you about the jet. They can't
yeah,
talk about the environment and then do the opposite and pollute the environment. So you need to think, you need to put your stake in the ground and say, and then a brand needs to do. And when you do take those three steps, a
mm,
consumer will want to join your brand, and they will end up advocating for you, and they will end up defending you,
right.
and they will be with you long term because now you two are together, and they'll wear your brand logos, they'll be proud. And what's better than that?
Right. I mean, I love how you talk about tribe building, right? That human need to belong to clubs that reflect who we want to be. And I can see how that fits into advertising in 2026 and beyond. What would you say? What are the 5% of brands that will truly win in that realm in the next decade? What are they going to be doing differently, or what are they already doing differently actually right now today?
They're being transparent, number one, and they're letting the consumers in on some of their thinking. Some of the even so, Everlane is a company that told their consumer how much the material cost that goes into their clothing.
Mm,
So they let them know exactly how much it costs to make this article of clothing and
yep.
how much percentage of profit we're going to take by selling it.
Hmm.
Consumers love that. They love being in on the know, and they appreciate that. Um, Other brands, they participate. They have to be truthful. You cannot hoodwink any consumer anymore.
Right.
Um, and they need to be purposeful. Brands need to do something that brings value to the consumer. And
Mhm.
what I mean by that, it's that the consumer can identify themselves through the brand. if a brand stands for something, take Allbirds,
Yep.
the sneakers that are made with natural materials.
Right.
So if somebody wants to identify as somebody who cares about the world or the environment, and they want to signal that to other people, their friends or family or whomever, they do it through the Allbirds brand by
Mhm.
purchasing their shoes and by wearing them. So
Right.
now everything is aligned, and the consumer gets their identity through the brand. And those are things that are being done now that weren't done back then. Back, a while ago, logo meant, you wear an expensive article of clothing, and all it did was said that you're rich, and
Right.
that's why people did it.
Yep.
It's a little bit different now. It's a little bit deeper. That was superficial, but it was real. And
Right.
now it's what can I do to make the world better, to repair the world? And if I associate with this with brand X, I can do it. Brand Y, I can't. I'm going with brand X.
Yeah. Yep. So let's say for brand, you know, Y, you handed them or you a $10 million budget, right? And say they're a newer brand. Where would be what's the first dollar you'd spend there out of that $10 million?
I'd figure out a way to create something that can do something wonderful for the world. Okay,
Mhm.
so if I'm a clothing brand, I will try and find materials that don't harm the world, don't pollute, or something like that.
Yep.
If I'm an auto brand, I will make sure that the materials that I use in the seats or the metal that I use, something has to be good. We can create things with today's technology that do not harm the world in any way. It's there. The technology is there. So the first thing I would do is I would find a way to create something that has a benefit to the end user physically,
Yep.
and then I would tell that story and take a stand and tell the world why, and tell people why it's so important. So again, it goes back to think, say, do. I
Sure.
would I would
Sure.
think of something interesting and elevating. I would take a stand and I would articulate that in an interesting way that makes a consumer believe what I'm saying, wants to rally around what I'm saying, and then wants to advocate for what I'm saying.
Mhm.
And then I'm just going to do it. I would roll it all out, and I would have the consumer join me as we roll it out. And it becomes a lot bigger than just a company that's selling something for a quick buck. And I would form lasting relationships with consumers that become tribes. Um, I know it sounds really simple, but it's a hell of a lot more complicated than that.
Seriously. Yeah.
There are a lot more steps. I articulate it in a fun way in the book that I'm writing right now, um, and yeah, that's the way to do it this day and age. I've done it in the past. I've worked on Fortune 500
Mhm.
companies. Um, and I pretty much understand how it goes right now.
Right.
And I worked on one of the brands that really impacted me when I was at Ogilvy. I worked on this gigantic insurance company, and the insurance company's main message was be careful, watch out what you do, don't take too many chances.
Hmm.
And we found a way to reframe that entire um, industry, and especially this company,
Yep.
by twisting it and turning it around completely, and by saying, guess what? Nothing great happens in the world unless you take a risk.
Right.
Go ahead and take a risk,
Right.
because if you don't, everything stays the same. And we put that campaign out, and it was a passion of mine, and it really worked. It not only did it sell insurance policies for the company, but it impacted people's lives
Mhm.
tremendously, where they were taking risks that they didn't do before. And when I heard about it and I got the feedback from the client, from their consumers, um, I knew that that's the way to motivate a consumer, to elevate a consumer, and
Yep.
to gain, a tribe of consumers for my brand.
Right. I love it. Um, let's back up a little bit just as we sort of work towards close here, Steve. Imagine if the legends of advertising, Bernbach, Ogilvy, Reeves were alive today. What would they say about TikTok ads, AI generated campaigns, and the obsession with going viral?
You know what they would say? They would say, "Bring it on." They would say, "Bring it on," because all it is a change in media. But if the message is on point, if it's entertaining, if it's elevated in a way that your consumer will want to join with the
Sure.
brand, they'll say, "Bring it on," and they would do great work in TikTok, or great work in on YouTube, or wherever the medium leads you,
Hmm.
because it's not about that. I mean, there are great people that I list in the book. Somebody like Howard Gossage, who was in San Francisco in the 1960s. He was the one who created interactive advertising. That didn't happen from digital. He did it with print.
Right.
So he would put out a print ad and he would have a puzzle in it or a contest in it. And he would motivate the consumer after reading his ad to send it back, cut it out, and send it back for a chance to win a prize. And
Hmm.
so consumers interacted with this brand through print. Okay, this was like 30, 40 years before digital advertising even began. So they would embrace it. In short, they would embrace it and they would do wonders with it.
I love it. I mean, that's timeless to think about here, right? Of what every marketer today should try and be relearning in this world that we're in today.
No
Steve,
doubt.
this was unreal. Depth, history, psychology, purpose, and a much needed reminder that the biggest question in advertising isn't did it go viral? It's does it matter? Where can listeners find you, find the upcoming book, follow your work, and stay tuned? In your realm of conscious driven marketing.
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn. You can go to my website, stevebiegel.com. That's Biegel.com. They can visit Dreamboat Group at our website, and send me a note, send me a question, anything you like. I love meeting people and talking about the craft of advertising, where it's been, where it is, and where it's going.
Fantastic. And everyone should be able to find those links in the bottom of the show description. Here's the truth though, from our conversation today. Paid advertising can ignite awareness, but only brand soul sustains that belief. Flashes, they burn bright, but purpose burns long. Steve,
That's
thanks
correct.
for joining today.
You're quite welcome. Thanks so much for having me, Adam.
All right. Thanks everyone for tuning into Is Anything Real? If this gave you something real to chew on, share it, drop a review, and join us next time as we keep pulling apart what's real and what's just noise. And until next time, plug in, power up, and keep your brand human. Thanks again, Steve.
Quite welcome.
If this episode of Is Anything Real resonated, you're probably at a moment where the old playbook isn't holding anymore. I work with transitioning founders and executives to install operating rhythms that hold under pressure. Not motivation, not hype. I've spent over 20 years inside high-pressure environments and worked with over 300 leaders through moments where clarity mattered more than speed. If you want clarity you can actually rely on, book a foundation call at adamwbarney.com. Clarity over chaos, always.